My name's Indira Lakshmanan. Good morning, and I'm so delighted to see this great room and to know about all of you global innovators and creators who are here. I was invited to come speak to you because I'm a longtime journalist. I've spent my entire career writing and broadcasting for the Boston Globe, NPR, Bloomberg News, the International Herald Tribune, which is the International New York Times, and others. And I'm just really privileged to be able to be here today to talk to you about information, misinformation, and essentially our own information hygiene, how all of you as folks who are trying to tell your own stories can tell them reliably and accurately and make sure also that you're not falling prey to misinformation which spreads like viruses now. So we'll get started. All right, so fake news, which you've all heard the term, of course, is not the way that President Trump talks about it when he says it's news that he doesn't like. That's not what fake news really means. Fake news may be motivated by money, like the Macedonian teenagers who were trying to buy sneakers by spreading fake news and getting penny clicks. It can be motivated by ideology or politics. It can be folks trying to create chaos. And it can be a smokescreen to divert attention from other things that we should be paying attention to. I've put this up here just so you can see this matrix from First Draft, which is a really great organization that tries to keep information clean and stop the spread of fake information, to show you that there's a whole range of what fake news can be. Some of it is parody, like The Onion, and it goes all the way down to propaganda, and there are different aspects of this here. Misleading content and fabricated content at the bottom, you can see, is most often seen in propaganda and political influence. All right, so how does misinformation spread so quickly? Of course, we know it's because of the internet now. Misinformation, let's face it, fake news is as old as humankind. There have always been people telling fake stories to one another back to caveman days. The difference is cavemen did not have the internet. So this is how things spread now, is through the internet and of course through social media, through what we like, what we share, what we spread, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, everything. I want to show you, just take you back here, because fake news as a concept really sort of burst onto the public stage and public consciousness in 2016, during the 2016 election in the United States, and also after the Brexit campaign in Britain. And these are the top fake headlines of 2016 in the US. On Facebook. And you can see that they include things like the fake story that Obama signed an executive order banning the Pledge of Allegiance, which never happened. The notion that Pope Francis had endorsed Donald Trump, which never happened. The idea that Donald Trump was offering free one-way tickets to Africa and Mexico to those who want to leave America, also never happened. But someone's raising her hand here. I want to show you something significant about this, though. Look at the website addresses here, abcnews.com.co. At first it looks reliable, but then you realize that extra .co is not ABC News. It's a fake news website. This one, I can't even pronounce it, tmzhiphop.com. It's not TMC. It's a made-up website, and the Denver Guardian is a newspaper that doesn't exist, this one that claims that the FBI agent involved in Hillary email leaks was found dead in a murder-suicide. Never happened. But look how these headlines spread. This is really important. I want to show you this. This is the important work of Craig Silverman, the media editor at BuzzFeed, who took the time after the 2016 election to actually track fake news headlines on Facebook in a systematic way. And look what he showed. He showed that the top 20 fake news headlines in 2016 during the campaign were shared 1.4 million more times on Facebook than the top 20 real news headlines that came from the New York Times, the Washington Post, and others. So think about that. And some of you in this room and watching may have unwittingly participated in that by hitting like or click and sharing things with your audience and your friends and family that were not true. In 2017, it just continues. Look at this. Some of the top headlines in 2017: that Nancy Pelosi's son was arrested for murder, not true. That Malia Obama was busted for 6 pounds of marijuana in Chicago, not true. So and this one is a personal favorite, that supposedly Iceland is paying women $5,000 per month to marry immigrants. All right, so none of these headlines are true, but I'm trying to show you that just to give you an idea of how they spread. Like, look at this one, LGBT adding P for pedosexual. I mean, crazy, crazy headlines, and in some cases, you see the same headline, but used on different sites, on a liberal sort of conspiracy site and on a conservative conspiracy site to whip people up for different reasons. So, I think it's important that when you see a headline that looks maybe too good to be true or too crazy to be true, it may not actually be true. And they have gotten really good, these purveyors of fake news, at making things look real even when they're not. All right, so you're probably all wondering, why do we fall for fake news? We're not stupid people, right? We're not stupid. Why do so many people, why were there 1.4 million more shares and likes and engagement on the fake news headlines than the real news headlines? Well, there are a variety of reasons. Some of it is we're just lazy, right? We see it, we see the story, it sounds right, or it sounds shocking, and we just don't bother to check the URL, to Google the name of the website that it came from, to cut and paste that headline and see if it appears anywhere else. That's tied in a little bit to being too trusting. We see something and we think, that must be true. Again, don't be trusting anymore. Be skeptical. Some of this is we like certainty, right? We all want to know that that's what it is, like a simple answer. We like to have simple answers to our problems in life. So there's a lot of reasons psychologically that people click on and believe fake news, and one of the most important ones is confirmation bias. And essentially, we see this on the left as well as on the right, that people see a story that plays to their own preconceived notions, and they believe it because it sounds right, it sounds good, and they don't bother to check it to see that it's not actually true. And then, of course, the most innocent reason, laughs. But keep in mind, you may have an LOL over something, but your friends and your family who you share it with may actually believe it and not realize that it's a joke. All right, so I want to show you a couple examples of fake news and how it spreads on the internet, innocent things that may have just popped up in your own feeds. So during Hurricane Harvey last year in Houston, this shark popped up. And this guy who shared it is actually a journalist in Dublin who, has tons of followers, and as you can see, he got 146,000 likes and 86,000 retweets on this, partly because people looked at his profile, I think, and thought, oh, this is a journalist, this is a legitimate thing, Hurricane Harvey. So I searched that image, and I was able to find this is the original shark. And this original shark was photographed by a photographer for National Geographic in southern Australia. And you see the scale of the shark. I'm sure that the guy in the kayak thought that shark was as scary as you would have if you were driving on the highway and saw the shark, but that shark was never on the highway. And if you reverse image search that shark, you will find him in Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Harvey, basically every hurricane, I think going back practically to Katrina, that shark is driving by somebody's rearview mirror. All right, here's another example. Black Panther, the hit movie recently. Right after Black Panther, for that whole weekend and the next week, there were all these posts that you saw out, not just in Reddits and subreddits, but actually on Facebook and Twitter as well. People who claimed to be white people who had gone to this movie who claimed that black people were beating them up, saying they shouldn't be at this movie. So I looked at this picture and I thought, something about this picture looks weird to me. This person claiming that they're going to the ER because they've been assaulted. So I did something, you may know about this. I went to TinEye, which is a reverse image search free function that you can get on your browser. Google has reverse lookup as well. And I just cut and pasted that image and dragged and dropped it. I basically just did a screenshot of the image and dragged and dropped it into there. And look what I found. I found this exact same image on Flickr, taken in October 2009, long before Black Panther was even an idea or in production. And it was from someone's Flickr account saying, "Happy Halloween, y'all." So this was her fake blood from her costume. All right, that was really easy. That took me about 3 seconds to figure that out. Reverse Google search, look at this picture. Let's say, oh, I don't know who that is, let's say. So I just, again, screenshot it, drop it in, and look, it tells me it's Angela Merkel, Barack Obama at the G7. So anytime you look at an image and you're wondering what it is, you can just search it, drag it, and drop it, and figure out what it is. Be aware also that things that you see on Twitter, even from figures, whether they're political figures or ideological figures who you may not like, stuff you see them saying may not actually be true, because it is possible to generate fake tweets. Let me give you an example. All of these Donald Trump tweets that say they're coming from real Donald Trump, like I am whatever the despicables need me to be, hashtag MAGA, are not actually real. They were just created on that fake tweet generator. And keep in mind that someone can make fake tweets about anybody, including yourself. So it's something to really be aware of. Misinformation, of course, is not just, funny or political. It can also be dangerous or deadly. And I wanted to bring up some examples here, Zika as one example. When the Zika outbreak happened, researchers at the University of Wisconsin in Tulane analyzed highly shared Facebook posts about Zika and found that 12% of them contained misinformation. And I thought, 12%, that's not as high a number as I would have thought. And when I looked a little bit deeper, I saw that when the WHO and other reliable agencies were sharing information about Zika, it got only 1/10 of the page views of pieces written by conspiracy websites. Ebola. Many of you also know that fake news spread about Ebola that, caused people to make bad decisions. There were stories saying that if you ate a lot of salt, that would protect you from Ebola. There were rumors, basically that spread throughout Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, that that the quarantines were fake. You didn't need to be quarantined. That led to unnecessary deaths. The salt and bitter melon rumor, which spread in Nigeria, also was not helpful. And in Brazil, rumors that Zika was caused by bad vaccines also led to unnecessary deaths and to people avoiding vaccines. The anti-vax thing is a really important thing. I'm sure you all are very aware of the rumors and the fake news that have spread by anti-vaxxers. And that's something which has caused all sorts of unnecessary deaths. Even in Europe, in the last academic year, there were something like 35 people who died from measles unnecessarily because they had been avoiding vaccines. Concussions, this is an interesting one I wanted to bring up because there was a study that came out of the University of Maryland claiming anti-concussion benefits by drinking chocolate milk by football players, and it turns out that the lead researcher had been giving $200,000 from the Allied Milk Foundation. So make sure you always look up where people are getting their money from. Lyme disease, this is an example I bring up because in France, there's a very strong movement of patients who believe they have something called chronic Lyme disease, which the medical establishment says, no, doesn't actually exist. What this comes down to is people actually wanting better treatment for the symptoms they have or the conditions they have, whatever they are. And France has not done a great job, its medical establishment, in dealing with it, because rather than sort of addressing the concerns that people have and the problems they have, they've sort of gone back all the time hitting hard on science, science, science. What you're saying is not true, and it's only built up that movement more. People who don't believe in establishment medicine because they feel that their own symptoms are not being addressed. So I bring this up because I want to talk about how healthcare is probably the one sort of stream that has been dealing with misinformation for such a long time that some really important lessons have come out of the medical establishment and healthcare and global health in particular on how to fight misinformation. So I wanted to just go over a couple lessons. One of them is when you're facing misinformation, explain what is correct. Don't just tell the other side you're wrong. Just telling someone you're wrong is not effective, and it's not a way to convince them. The science shows that. Make sure that your information on your side that you want people to rely on is not only reliable and vetted and triple-checked and quadruple-checked, but that it's accessible, that people can get it easily. Also make sure that you are teaching young people. All the studies show that adults take longer to learn things, and we also have to unlearn bad things. And so focusing on young people as a way to stop information is really important. Evidence is necessary, but it's not sufficient to convince people of your case. And this is what goes to the question of, some of it is about ideology and identity and how we identify ourselves. So be careful when you're trying to convince people that they're wrong and you're right, that you're not going somehow centrally to how they identify themselves as a person, or that you take time, that you're patient and compassionate, and over time you can bring people over to your side, but not by trying to hammer people on the head. This is true with, for example, the home birth movement in Australia. There have been studies showing that it was the time taken by researchers to compassionately understand people's sort of ideological viewpoints and convince them slowly. This is really important, and this is a job for all of us. We need to hold misinformers accountable. It is critically important that when people like Dr. Oz are spreading false medical information on national television, on the internet, that we are all standing up and not only holding them accountable, but holding the platforms accountable who have given them space and ability to talk, the networks, people like Oprah, and making sure that everybody realizes that we won't stand for it. I want to just credit, these 5 points came from a really great article in Vox. This is a picture that I just wanted to share because this is how UNICEF has basically tried to fight back in South India against a WhatsApp campaign in 2017. There was a ton of misinformation that spread on WhatsApp to tell people don't get immunized in South India. And UNICEF fought back by spreading information on WhatsApp saying you should get immunized, and this is why. And against preventable childhood diseases. And some states in India are aiming for 95% vaccination coverage. This is never going to happen unless they can get their word out. So trying to spread correct information on the same platforms that spread incorrect information is critically important. So those were the main message I want you to take away is don't be duped. Don't spread fake news yourselves. And keep in touch. That's me. You can follow me at Indira_Lakshmanan, L for Lakshmanan. Thank you.